Hey everyone, welcome back to Sean Talks Wrestling. In today's video, we'll be ranking every single WrestleMania theme, starting with WrestleMania 1 in 1985, all the way to 2025's WrestleMania 41. This will be one of many videos that will be coming out on the channel on the road to WrestleMania. Let's get into it. Starting things off with WrestleMania 1, we got Phil Collins and Philip Bailey, Easy Lover. This was for WrestleMania 1 in 1985. And I'm a big Genesis fan. Loved Peter Gabriel and post Peter Gabriel stuff. And Phil Collins is one of those artists that I always love to listen to. Is it right for WrestleMania? Maybe in the 80s it was. Now not so much, but I think for the times that it was the song for WrestleMania, I think it fits. And overall, it was a good song to use for the first WrestleMania. So I'm going to go good for this one. Next up, we got WrestleMania 2, the main theme. This one was designed for WrestleMania 2 itself, and it's mostly just instrumental. Not so much a big fan of these types of songs, especially when they went back and forth between music made by artists and then music made in-house. For me, this one's just average. It fits for the time, but otherwise, it's just not that great of a theme. So I think average is a good place to go. Next up is Aretha Franklin, Who's Zoomin' Who. Again, it's the 80s still, and it's more in tune with where the 80s were at in the music industry at that point. But for me, it doesn't spell out WrestleMania. It doesn't make me think of wrestling at all. And I just think overall it's a bad theme to have, even if it is the 80s. So I'm going to stick it in bad. Then next up, we got WrestleMania 4, another in-house. So we have a bit of a pattern going with artist in-house. Again, this one's just not that great. I wasn't a big fan of it. So I'm going to stick it in bad for now. It might go in average later, but it's more on the same level as the Aretha Franklin theme. Then for WrestleMania 5, I'm not sure where they were going with this, but it's this weird saxophone theme. It sounds like it could be in an 80s soap opera, which I guess if you consider wrestling and WrestleMania is just a giant soap opera, so it makes sense. But overall, it wasn't great at all. I'm going to put this one in trash just because I think the redeeming thing about it is that it's kind of funny, but if I'm tuning into WrestleMania, I don't want a theme to be funny. I want it to kind of fit the energy of the show, and just this weird 80s soap opera saxophone theme doesn't make any sense. Then next up, we have The Great Spectacle from Jim Johnson. And this one was actually made for WrestleManias 6, 7, and 8. Again, it's 80s, early 90s. It's more in line with that kind of style that they were going for. I wouldn't say it's bad on the same level as Aretha Franklin and the other WrestleMania theme. It's more on the average scale. It's not harming in any way. It's not offensive. Like, I'm not tuning into a WrestleMania and just hating the theme that's playing, but overall it's also not something I'd like to hear. So it's going to go in average. Then next up, this one might be a bit of a hot take because I know that, again, it's one of those instrumental themes and it's very early 90-ish, but for me, you have to understand WrestleManias 13 and 14 were when I was entering my preteen era, and these were WrestleManias that I watched frequently, especially WrestleMania 14, and this one was just a theme that is stuck in my head forever. Every time I hear it, I kind of groove my shoulders to it a bit. It's just a really entertaining theme. Again, it's very, very early 90s, but for me, this one has to go in great. I'm just a real big fan of it. I'm also glad that it stuck around from WrestleMania 9 all the way till 14. And it had that staying power for a reason. It was just a fun tune to listen to. It's not on that level where the later WrestleMania themes where they dug into the heavy rock category. I wouldn't put it on that level, but for what it was at the time, I think it's pretty great. Then next up is WrestleMania 15's theme. This is a Jim Johnson production, and it's called Rage. I do like where they were going with it. I think they were going for more of that rock vibe style leading into 15. They were kind of changing the way they go about their WrestleMania themes, and I do appreciate the effort that they put into it. It's not my favorite, but it's also not. It's not average. I would put it just slightly above it. I think on the level of Phil Collins is pretty much where I leave it at. I still prefer Phil Collins' WrestleMania 1 theme, but I think on the level of good is where it should be. And then WrestleMania 16's theme, we have California, another Jim Johnson creation. And this one I'm going to put as, it's between good and great. If there was a section between great and good, I think that's where this one would be placed. I'm going to put it in good. I kind of like the vibe that they were going for this. I also love the aesthetic of the black and green for the year 2000. And if you listen closely to the theme, you'll hear traces of what would later become Teddy Long's theme. At this point, he was just a referee at the time. But when he would become a manager, a general manager, and so on and so forth, this would become his theme. It's very recognizable if you listen to it. It's not the exact theme from start to finish, but it has that element behind it. So if you go back and listen to it, you'll for sure hear it. Next up is WrestleMania 17's theme, My Way from Limp Bizkit, and I think you guys know where this is going. This is going straight up to the top in the GOAT section. Pretty self-explanatory. This came out at about a time where I was entering my teenage years, so I was heavy into the rock, and Limp Bizkit was one of those bands that was there at the time, and I was just a huge fan. My Way is probably up there as one of my favorite Limp Bizkit songs as well, so to hear it on a WrestleMania stage was pretty cool. And the fact that we got one of, if not the best hype packages with Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock to the tune of My Way, I still think that remains unbeaten to this day. Some have come close, which we'll get into later on in this list. But as it stands, that WrestleMania 17 package with My Way is just at the top tier of what you would expect from a hype package. So no question about it, My Way is going into the GOAT. I think it's probably going to be at the very, very top first place section of the GOAT. That's where I would put it. Into WrestleMania 18, this is one where they actually had two themes, and we're going to start it off with Saliva. They lended their song Superstar to WrestleMania 18, and they actually performed the song live on the WrestleMania stage, which was pretty cool to see. Again, they were going for that heavy rock vibe for their WrestleMania music. And at the time, I'm in my teenage years at this point, watching every WrestleMania. And it's really cool to see bands like Saliva and Drowning Pool and Limp Bizkit not only have their music being played at WrestleMania, but actually they're on the stage performing their music to the crowd, which was really cool to see. As for Saliva's Superstar, I don't think it's GOAT. It's really good, but I wouldn't place it on the GOAT stage. I'm going to put it at great. Again, it fits that heavy rock vibe that they're going with for the early noughties, which I think wrestling fans around the world appreciated at the time. It was a step in a different direction when you compare it to the early 90s into the mid 90s with the in-house productions. So Saliva Superstar is going into great. And equally so, I would probably put Drowning Pool's Tearaway into the great category as well. This is the other theme for WrestleMania 18. And overall, Drowning Pool was pretty heavily featured on WWE productions at the time. I think they kind of went between a couple bands where either it was Limp Bizkit, it was Drowning Pool, it was Saliva, and there was a couple of other bands sprinkled in there where they really wanted to go for that heavy, heavy rock vibe. And Drowning Pool's Tearaway, I wouldn't put in GOAT, but it's definitely very close to being so. I think I have it slightly behind Superstar, but overall, it's a great song to have. Moving into WrestleMania 19, we have Limp Bizkit's Crack Addict, so they went back to Limp Bizkit. I don't like it as much as I like My Way. I still think it's pretty good. It's between good and great. Again, they're sticking with that heavy rock music that they're playing during their hype packages and during the show. For this one, I think I'll leave it in good for now. It's a notch below Saliva and Drowning Pool, and not anywhere near close to My Way. So I think good is where I'll place it. Allow me to take a moment to let you know that I am now a WWE Shop affiliate. If you plan on making any WWE shop purchases, doing so using my affiliate link in the description of this video would be a great help in the growth of this channel. I'm currently building an awesome new office to host this channel on, and every little bit helps. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's get back to the video. At WrestleMania 20, we are starting off with another Drowning Pool song. This time it's Step Up, and I think it is a step up from the good category into great for another Drowning Pool in that category. I think Step Up is just a really solid song, and on the WrestleMania stage, it really amplified certain hype packages that they used it for. One in particular was the big triple threat match with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit. They had that song playing during the package, and it was pretty intense, and it sold the match if you weren't already sold to begin with. So I think this song would belong in the great category. And then the second song for WrestleMania 20 is Godsmack's Touché. I've never really been a fan of Godsmack, to be honest. It pertains to a very different style compared to Limp Bizkit and Drowning Pool and Saliva, even though they're kind of in that same category. It's just a different taste, and for me, it's not anything I was particularly fond at the time. So for me, it's between good and average. I think I'm going to stick it in average. Again, I'm not the biggest Godsmack fan. I know there's a lot of Godsmack fans out there, and Touché is one of their, I would say one of their decent hits, but overall, just you have to have a taste for them, and it's not for me, unfortunately. At WrestleMania 21, we had Three Doors Down, Behind Those Eyes. Look, I'm okay with Three Doors Down. I never really minded their music. Some of their songs were better than the others, but overall, they were never really that band that I listened out for. If they were on the radio, it would be like, okay, cool. Maybe Kryptonite would play. That would be awesome, but never really followed their career all that much. When it comes to this song, it's pretty okay. I think it's on the same level as Godsmack's Touché, maybe slightly ahead of it. So I'd probably place it there. Again, Three Doors Down is kind of like Godsmack, where if you're a fan of their music, you're a big fan, but if you care for only a couple of their hits, they're not always going to stick with you. And I think in the case of this song from them, it didn't really stick with me. And then the other theme is Big Time by Soundtrack of Our Lives. Again, this is pretty average to me. I don't think it's bad. I definitely don't think it's trash, but it's just one of those kind of generic rock songs that plays during a hype package that gets you a little amped for the match, but doesn't really have any staying power for me. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in average. I think it's just a notch below the Crack Addicts and the Californias that we have in the good category. At WrestleMania 22, ironically, we have another song called Big Time, but this time by Peter Gabriel. So now we have two songs that are called Big Time and two songs from Genesis members. Peter Gabriel was the original frontman. And obviously I'm a big fan of Peter Gabriel, so I might be a little biased with this. For me, this is between good and great. I think I'm going to put it just slightly to great towards the end of that category. Again, I know I'm really biased with this. It's not going to please everyone that was tuning into WrestleMania that year. I know not everyone's a Peter Gabriel fan, so if you didn't like this theme, let me know in the comments down below. I completely understand, but my bias kicks in for this for obvious reasons, and for that, I'm putting this Peter Gabriel song in great. And if you don't like it, you, I'm cutting that out. At WrestleMania 23, we dove back into the Saliva catalog, and this time we went with Ladies and Gentlemen. I don't think it's as strong as Superstar. It's still a pretty good hit. I think it definitely goes into the good category. It is a step below Superstar and the Drowning Pool song, and way below My Way. Still My Way, the only song in the GOAT category at this time. I don't think it's going to be the only one by the end of this list, but keep watching, tune into the end of the video, and find out who else I put in the GOAT category. But for Saliva, Ladies and Gentlemen, that's going into the good category. Probably exactly where I'm placing it here. I don't think it's better than Crack Addict, so definitely going to place it there. All right, WrestleMania 24 was Rev Theory's Light It Up. Rev Theory, of course, being the band that plays Randy Orton's voices. So they're very familiar with the wrestling audience. At this time, they played Light It Up for WrestleMania 24. Another solid song for WrestleMania itself. This is one of those songs that you would definitely have on your playlist while you're at the gym. It's one of those heavy rock songs that you'll listen to on repeat. Um, Again, I'd put it probably between good and great. For me, I think it's slightly better than Crack Addict, even. So I'm putting it in the good category just ahead of those two songs. I think that's where it fits. Um, I'm okay with Rev Theory, to be honest. Obviously we know them from Voices, but overall their music is really fun to listen to, especially when you're at the gym and you're trying to get that good pump in. Rev Theory is one of those bands that you want to listen to. And then at WrestleMania 25, we have a pair of AC/DC songs. We'll start off with the first one, Shoot to Thrill. And again, my bias is going to kick in here. I'm a pretty big AC/DC fan, and Shoot to Thrill was one of those really energetic rock songs that get you in the mood for WrestleMania. So for that reason alone, I'm putting it in great. Um, Again, I'm a big fan of AC/DC, so that's going to be a bit of a bias kicking in. But at the same time, I look at, does it work for WrestleMania? Does it work for wrestling in general? And Shoot to Thrill is just one of those songs that gets you really energized and amped for the show. And for the same reason, I'm putting War Machines in great as well. It's another great song from AC/DC, and I think that 1-2 combination that they had for WrestleMania 25 was really cool. It brought back some of that vintage vibes, uh, but it stayed true to WrestleMania 25 and the year that happened. So for that reason, Shoot the Thrill and War Machine are going into the great category. And moving on to WrestleMania 26, this is the first WrestleMania that I have a trio of songs listed here. And we're going to start it off first with the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Snow. I know this is a song about drugs. I'm not going to get into the particular of which drugs they are. But when it comes to wrestling, it's kind of a weird fit because we know what the meaning of the song is. And then they're trying to apply it to a wrestling show, which is sorry. I know that they're trying to apply it to a wrestling show, which is pretty cool to see, but at the same time, it's kind of weird that that kind of song is being played. I'm a huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, though. I love their music, and again, it's just one of those things where it's cool to see on the wrestling show. But I think it's a notch below those couple of AC/DC songs and Peter Gabriel. So I'm going to place it in good, but I'm also going to place it probably in the middle right here, maybe even ahead of California. I think it's one of those songs that if you're a fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, it's up there as one of their best songs, and to have it on WrestleMania was pretty awesome. Then the second song for that year's WrestleMania is Audio Slave's Be Yourself. Again, bias kicking in. I know I'm going to say that a lot during this video, but I was a huge fan of Audio Slave at the time. Freaking love their music. My cousin had pretty much all of their albums, and I would start borrowing them, cycling them in one after the other just to listen to their entire album from start to finish on loop. So shout out to my cousin for letting me borrow those albums. That was pretty cool. And overall, Audio Slave is probably going to go into the great category just for the fact that I'm a big fan of their music, but fitting for WrestleMania 2, I think. And so, yeah, I think great is the proper place to put them at. And the final song for WrestleMania 26, which is also probably the weakest one, it's Kevin Rudolph's I Made It. Gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of the song. It's one of those cheesier WrestleMania fitting themes where I get it. I get the message behind the song. You made it. You made it to the big dance. You made it to WrestleMania. You get your WrestleMania moment. And it's one of those songs that just fits, I guess, in that sense. But at the same time, I'm just not a fan of it at all. So I'm going to put it in the bad category. I don't think it's trash. I will say there are a few others that are going to be on that category, but it's just slightly above trash. And at WrestleMania 27, we have Written in the Stars by Tiny Tempa and Eric Turner. And for the exact opposite reason, it's exactly like I Made It in the sense that it's perfect for a WrestleMania event. and just that vibe to it really fit. But in comparison to I Made It, I actually really, really like this song. I'd actually put this on one of my Spotify playlists just to have it. And even beyond wrestling or the fact that it was on a WrestleMania card, just that the song in general is a really strong song that is fun to listen to. It's a definite banger, and I'm going to put it actually in GOAT. I know that's a bit of a surprise and it might be a really hot take, but for me, it's just one of those songs that really stuck to me at the time. And even now, when before making this video, just listening back to it again, it really is a strong song, and it kind of gave me goosebumps listening to it. It brought back all those warm, fuzzy memories of that WrestleMania. So for that reason, it has to go into GOAT. Then at WrestleMania 28, we have a jam-packed roster of themes for this show, 4 in total, and we're going to be starting it off with Machine Gun Kelly's Invincible. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, before I started making this video, I was kind of mapping it out where I thought things would go, and when I saw Machine Gun Kelly, I thought, this is automatically going in the trash because I can't stand his music. But I made the wise decision to listen back to some of these songs just to make sure I was getting things right. And when I listened to Invincible, it reminded me that at WrestleMania 28, this was the song that hyped up that John Cena Rock match. And I'm honest, just talking about it now, I can start to feel the hair rising on my arms. It's such a brilliant song. And for that hype package alone, I can't say enough good things about it. I know, again, it's Machine Gun Kelly. It's not one of those artists that I listen to. But just for the fact alone that it was used in that hype package for John Cena to build up the match with The Rock, phenomenal stuff. I don't know if I'm putting it in GOAT. I think it's going to go in great, but all the way at the front. I think it's just bordering GOAT, just for those feelings that you get watching that hype package all over again. And it was during that era where they were making these hype packages with songs that I wouldn't typically listen to on a normal basis, but the way that they stylized the hype package around the song, it made you a fan of the song, and it wanted to make you listen to it more, which is what I'm trying to say. And for that reason, I have to put it in great, which is something I never thought I'd say about a Machine Gun Kelly song, but here we are. Then I'm going to place these two next to each other just to get them out of the way, because we had a pair of Flo Rida songs, which, oh boy, quite a lot to say about that, but I think I'm going to limit myself a little bit in order to save you guys some time and risk myself rambling on a little too much. I'm not a Flo Rida fan at all, and I never really liked his music. There was maybe a song or two where you could bob your head a little bit to it, but overall his music is very overrated. It's way overhyped, and the fact that we had 2 of them on one WrestleMania show is not something I was too thrilled about. We'll start off with the first one here. We have Wild Ones. I get it. It fits that kind of style of WrestleMania hype package that they're making, but it's just not something that's getting me into the show at all. So for that reason, I'm putting it in bad. It's just not for me. And at the same time, Good Feeling. The only feeling I get is not a good one. It's a bad one. And for that reason, I'm putting it into the bad category. And if memory serves me correct, there was one more song on this WrestleMania card. And that memory does remain, because it's Metallica's That Memory Remains. And for me, this was one of those situations where I'm going to let bias take complete control of the wheel. It's going directly into GOAT category and probably right behind My Way. The reason I'm laughing is because my wife is in the room with me and she just rolled the eyes to the back of her head. I know that Metallica is better than Limp Bizkit. I've went to see them a couple times, and they're one of the best bands out there. I'm not debating that. I'm not debating that if they're better than Limp Bizkit or not. I know they are, but bias is taking over with that WrestleMania 17 package. I'm sorry. If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments down below. Tell me how big of an idiot I am. I know it's not something that I'm going to look back on maybe in a week from now and rewatch this video over and go, oh my God. But that's where I'm placing it. Oh, and you know what? The thing that really made the song work is that this was the song that they used for the hype package for the Triple H Undertaker build up for that Hell in a Cell match. Uh, if you rewatch that hype package, it's just one of the most fun, outrageous, absurd things to watch just because you know what they're building towards. And the moment The Undertaker says that Shawn was better than him, that's when they set up that match and it was going to be Hell in a Cell. And we all know how that match went down. It was one of the craziest matches and outcomes that I've ever seen. We all know that false finish where Shawn Michaels was just in the corner out of his mind, losing it. And it was that end of the era match where I think after it was all over, we were all kind of like just completely out of energy. We were zapped. On to WrestleMania 29. We're going to start it off with Letters from the Sky by Civil Twilight. I know this is not one of those WrestleMania themes that was played all that much. It was actually reserved for a hype package for John Cena. So a bit of history for those that don't remember, John Cena lost his match to The Rock at WrestleMania 28, and then they built up that story that loss caused him to kind of lose it all. It affected his life professionally and personally. They brought his divorce into it. They made it really seem like he had become so obsessed with that loss at WrestleMania that he just started losing everything in his life. And that song played in the hype package, and I thought it was really strong. It really made that hype package feel like it was surreal to the point where you believed everything. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in good. I think it's just one of those songs that has a lot of staying power that if you listen to it outside of wrestling, you'll bring back all those memories of that hype package. And if you don't remember that hype package, please go back and watch it on YouTube. I think it's available on the WWE account. It's one of those hype montages that really gets you invested into the storyline. And I think that the previous year's WrestleMania with Invincible playing for John Cena, and then this one the following year, even if you're not the biggest John Cena fan or you don't really like him at all, you were so absorbed into that moment that you wanted him to win. You wanted him to take down The Rock and get that win over him at WrestleMania, which fortunately enough he did. The second song is Bones' Young Guns, and I'll be honest with you, I had to re-listen to the song because I couldn't remember it for the life of me. It's an alright song. It's not that memorable. I guess that's why I didn't remember it. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's trash. It's pretty average to me. I guess the most polite way to say it is that it's not harmful, but it's definitely lower tier average scale. And the final theme for WrestleMania 29 is unfortunately Coming Home by Diddy. I'm going to spare you the details. I think we all know what happened with Diddy. And so I'm not going to get into it. I think it's just going to go there. So WrestleMania 30 is actually a pretty big year in terms of themes. The main theme was Kid Rock Celebrate, which I'm not a big Kid Rock fan, and I didn't particularly care for this song either. I think it was pretty bad. I know that the style of Kid Rock song that they were going for was more in tune with what they were going for with AC/DC, but Kid Rock ain't AC/DC, and this one just wasn't it. So I'm going to place it in bad category. It's just not a big fan of the song in general. It wasn't super harmful. Again, it had that kind of appeal of a rock song for a WrestleMania show, but it's just not a good rock song. But where the bad ends, the good begins for WrestleMania 30, because we actually have a pair of songs that were used for hype packages, which I think are the two hype packages that rival My Way from WrestleMania 17. And the first one I'm going to start with is Eminem's Legacy, which was used for the hype montage of John Cena versus Bray Wyatt. Result aside from that match, I know a lot of people weren't particularly happy with how it ended, but the build-up towards this match was insane, and the montage was something that I had to rewatch. And then once I was done watching it, I rewatched it a second time. That's how good it was. It definitely brought back those feelings of just how insanely dangerous Bray Wyatt was at this period. This was pre-Fiend. He was still with the Wyatt family and still had that kind of cult-like gimmick where he was out in the woods with his straw hat and he was doing his trance-like dances. For me, this was one of the best periods for Bray Wyatt, and I know that a lot of people love The Fiend and love the the other gimmicks that he had after that. But for me, the Wyatt family in general was just so much fun to watch. And they really got me invested in the storyline where John Cena was actually scared of Bray Wyatt. I know that he eventually went on to stand up to Bray Wyatt and fight him at WrestleMania, but they built up this belief that he was actually afraid for the first time, which was something I didn't expect to see at the time. Uh, but enough about the story. The song itself, I'm a pretty big Eminem fan, especially during these times. This was a great song to have, and it really fit the bill for what they were going for in that montage. If you listen back to it, the words are hauntingly fitting for the Bray Wyatt character, and especially towards the point where they show John Cena and what has he gotten himself into. It's really haunting how close it hits to home. So for that reason, I'm putting it in great. And the final theme for WrestleMania 30 is the Imagine Dragons Monster. And if you don't remember what this was used for, then I suggest you get back into tune with Daniel Bryan's Yes movement. That was the year it was WrestleMania. And oh my God, this hype package was probably the closest thing to perfection and as close as I'm willing to put to Limp Bizkit's My Way package. So this one was used for Daniel Bryan when he was opposing the Authority and he started the Yes movement, and it dug way back to his beginnings in the WWE with NXT, where The Miz was his trainer. Obviously, The Miz is who he is and Daniel Bryan is who he is, but it was the perfect match where The Miz was all personality and Daniel Bryan lacked that personality. He was all wrestling skill and ability, but very bland as a character, especially at the very beginning. But you fast forward to WrestleMania 30, and that's no longer the case. Daniel Bryan has that personality. He has the entire WWE universe behind him. And throughout several segments on Raw where he brings fans into the ring and they're just parading around, they're taking over Monday Night Raw, or even just a simple yes chants where the entire friggin' arena is just doing it in unity with him, to the point where he does this slow yes chant where he slowly builds it up and then he starts doing it quickly and the entire crowd is doing it in sync with him. It's something that to this day I haven't seen anything quite like it, and it rivaled the reactions that someone like Stone Cold Steve Austin would get on some nights. And just for that reason, it's going to go into GOAT for me. All right, WrestleMania 31. This was the big WrestleMania year where we had the Seth Rollins cash-in during the main event. It was labeled the heist of the century, and that year had two themes. I'm going to start off with Kid Ink's Money and the Power. Again, this was one of those situations where I didn't remember this theme, so I had to listen back to it. And it's all right. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not that good either. I'm not that knowledgeable on Kid Ink music, but it wasn't bad either, so it's going to go into average. I think it was all right. It fit the bill for what they were using it for, but overall it's kind of a forgettable theme for me, so I can't put it in good. And the second song for WrestleMania 31 is Rise by David Guetta. And I know that there was kind of a split with this song where those who don't really get David Guetta or don't like him didn't really like the song, especially during like the beginning of the song where it's more getting. I get it. It's kind of annoying when you listen to it at first, but once you get past that and you get into the verses and the chorus, it's actually a pretty good song. So for that reason, I'm gonna put it in good. It's just on the edge of great. I think I might put it more mid-tier good, but it's one of those songs that when I go back to watch WrestleMania 31 and that song's playing and they're having those highlight packages that are showing at the end of the night and they have David Guetta's Rise playing, it's kind of fun to listen to. I can't deny that. So it's going to go in the good category. But please do let me know in the comments down below what you thought of David Guetta's Rise. I know that there was a pretty big split between those who liked it and those who didn't. So I'm curious to know how many of you liked the song and how many of you just didn't really like it at all. All right, moving on to WrestleMania 32. And this is unfortunately where I start to see a bit of a decline with the music that's being used for the WrestleMania themes. as opposed to what we had in the early noughties where it went between Limp Bizkit and Drowning Pool and Saliva, and you had Rev Theory thrown in there, and you had a bit of Godsmack, and you had, a bit of Three Doors Down. Now you're starting to get more into the very poppy music where it's popular on all those hit lists. It's all over the radio. So you're kind of used to hearing it everywhere. And then to tune into WrestleMania and it's blasting all over there as well. It kind of gets irritating and to the point where it's brain rot. And so that's the case with Flo Rida's Hello Friday, which doesn't really make sense for a show that's on a Sunday. I have to admit, a song that's called Hello Friday playing on a Sunday just kind of confuses the hell out of me. And as I mentioned earlier from the couple of songs from him, I'm not a big fan of Flo Rida. Not a big fan of Jason Derulo either, who's featured on this song. It's unfortunately pretty trash for me, so I'm going to place it there. The less of the offensive songs from Flo Rida is My House. I'm not going to lie, it's annoying. It's one of those songs that plays on repeat on the radio where you hear it maybe 20 times a day and you just can't stand it anymore. It's not trash in the sense that it was one of those popular songs that was popular for a reason, and I get why people liked it, but it's not in my wheelhouse of what I like to listen to, less so for a WrestleMania show. So for that, I'm going to place it in bad. It's leaning more towards trash, but I have it slightly better than Hello Friday. So yeah, it's going to stick around in bad. And then at WrestleMania 33, we have Pitbull's Green Light. And I'll be straightforward with you. Not a Pitbull fan at all. Never liked his music. Never really liked the persona he had. It's just trash. At WrestleMania 34, we have Kid Rock, New Orleans. And yeah, I get it. WrestleMania is in New Orleans. We have Kid Rock with a song called New Orleans. Trash. Following year, we have One Republic, Love Runs Out. And it's not a bad song, actually. I listened to it on a few occasions, and it's one of those songs that isn't the best. It's not the greatest, but it's not bad either. It's teetering between average and good. Maybe it depends the mood that I'm in while I'm listening to it. On some days, it might be just average, where I'm like, it's not that great. And on other times, I'll listen to it, and it might be good. So I'll probably place it towards the front end of the average themes. I think that's a good place to put it. At WrestleMania 36, we have kind of a theme going for the next 2 years with WrestleMania 36 and 37 having that pirate aesthetic, which I never really got and I never really liked. I found that the logos for both shows were pretty horrible and miserable to look at. And just the aesthetic of the pirates. I was never big on the pirate theme. So for a WrestleMania show, it was just weird to see. But for the music itself, we have the in-house production of the WrestleMania 36 theme, Heroes and Villains. It's about as mid can get. It's probably going to go towards the tail end of average, leaning into bad. Just your basic generic music that's played. It's not that great. And then I'm kind of in a weird place where I want to place this weekend song at bad because it just doesn't fit the bill of a WrestleMania show whatsoever. And for some reason, WWE decided to go with the weekend songs for the next 4 or 5 pay-per-views, which I never really understood. And this is coming from someone that actually likes the weekend's music. I didn't like it at WrestleMania show, so for me, it's going to go in average. Probably towards the tail end with Heroes and Villain. It's just one of those songs where I like Blinding Lights. I like to listen to it on the radio. It's a fine song, but for WrestleMania, it's just not something I want to hear. The following year, we have a trio of songs again. We're going to start it off with Fitz's Head Up High. And again, this is one of those songs that I struggle to remember, so I had to listen back to it, and not a big fan of it, to be honest. It's pretty average at best, but I'm going to place it in bad towards the tail end. It's just not one of those songs that I really dig listening to. And I think the same can be said for All the Gold, which is yet another in-house production from the WWE team. It's just, again, it's leading into that pirate aesthetic and kind of going with the same style of music, which I'm not a big fan of. So it's going to go into bad right next to Fitz. And then I think for the next couple of WrestleManias, we have just a whole bunch of Weekend getting spammed. So we have WrestleMania 37 ending with Save Your Tears, which, again, as average can be. Sacrifice, which was the next WrestleMania. Probably the better of the Weekend songs that were used. So I'll probably place it in the good tier at the very, very end. But then we have Less Than Zero, which was the song for WrestleMania 39. A great show, but a weird song to be played during it. So it's going to go towards the end of bad. And Gasoline for WrestleMania 40. It wasn't really pleasing to listen to for a show of that magnitude. And WrestleMania 40 was one of the biggest WrestleManias in history. So imagine to have all those matches and have all those great moments, and then you're listening to Gasoline being played during the highlights. It's just, it was a weird one. So it's going in bad for me. And now the grand finale for WrestleMania 41 this year. It's Travis Scott's Fein. And if I'm being honest with you, I've never really been a Travis Scott fan. Less so now after he slapped the piss out of Cody Rhodes and left him with a black eye and a busted eardrum. And believe me, that's not the first time that someone left injured when Travis Scott appeared at a show. For those that know. And Fein is just a miserable song to listen to. It's just that really annoying song that gets stuck in your head and you want to get it out, but it's so brain rot that it sticks around. And the first time I heard the song, I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't know the song was called Fein. So I remember turning to my daughter, why are they saying bean every time? They're saying bean, bean. And she's like, no, Dad, it's Fein. And it was one of those, God, my dad's old moments. But I still think I'm young enough to know when a word is being said. And I heard bean, and apparently it's Fein. So whatever. It's Travis Scott, who I'm not a big fan of. It's a pretty trash song. It's not meant for WrestleMania whatsoever. It's a step completely in the wrong direction in terms of what I think a good WrestleMania theme is. Again, completely biased on my end. I grew up with the Limp Bizkits and the Salivas and the Drowning Pools and the Rev Theories. You know, the songs that actually made you want to watch WrestleMania, where Fein is just, oh, that song's playing in the background. Cool. So trash for me. And so, yeah, with that being said, that's what I would place from GOAT to trash. If there's anything on this list that you don't agree with, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm interested in knowing what everyone thinks about my list in particular and where they would go differently. So once again, let me know in the comments down below what you would change, what you would have different, and if you agree with me or not. And that does it for this video. If you like this video, click like, and if you really liked it, subscribe, and make sure to click that bell to receive all notifications on future videos. As always, this is Sean reminding you to always be kind to one another and stay safe.